Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am back from Berlin. I'm not recovered yet, it was only 2 days ago, but I'm still on a high from the good run that I have. Not a PB, but just a well-controlled, well-paced, confidence-boosting, enjoyable run, which is the best sort of marathon you can do. And I just thought I would do a bit of a follow-up video to my race video, just explaining my journey to Berlin Marathon and what happens next, what I'm doing after Berlin Marathon, what my plans are going forward. Well, I'm going to take you right back to the start, I think. Year 2000, that was when I started running. I stopped smoking. I was really bad asthmatic. That was when I realised that I had to make a change. I stopped smoking, I started running. My dad was already a marathon runner. I used to see him heading out down the road, going for a run, coming back again. Big smile on his face. And there was me wheezing with my asthma, struggling up the stairs. So I knew I had to make a change, and I decided to stop smoking, and I started running. Didn't know what I was doing, just went out the door, just ran for 400 meters or a mile or whatever. 2 years later, 2002, I did my very first half marathon. I ran it with my dad. He challenged me to run a half marathon with him, which I did. So 2002, we ran a half marathon together. I didn't really realize at the time, but it was the start of something huge in my life. I wasn't wanting to rush anything. I wanted to take my time. So it was 5 years later before I ran my first full marathon. So 2007, I got a place in London Marathon, and it was an absolute shambles. I didn't know what I was doing. It was awful. I got halfway in 2 hours. I finished in 5 hours 45, so 3 hours 45 for the second half. It was an awful run, and I knew I had to learn more about it and unlock this running secret. So I joined a running club. Now, joining the running club inspired me in lots of other ways. It also inspired me to start triathlon. So a couple of years later, I did my first triathlon. At the time, I couldn't swim, so I learned by watching my son, who was having swimming lessons. I watched him from poolside, being taught how to do front crawl, and I watched YouTube videos, and I taught myself how to do front crawl. And over the next 5 or 6 years, I carried on doing triathlons. I carried on running, doing the occasional marathon, learning more and more about the sport, learning how to coach as well. I had my sights set on competing for Team GB, which some of my fellow runners were already doing. So that was my target, and over the next few years, I did some sprint triathlons, some Olympic distance, and then even ventured into middle distance triathlons in my quest to don that Team GB age group tri-suit. And after a few years of trying, I finally qualified for the European Middle Distance Championships in Rimini in 2015, and also for the World Age Group Championships in Chicago in 2015. And during the winter, in the build-up to those races, I fell off my bike. I didn't just fall off my bike, I broke my back when I hit the tarmac. It didn't need an operation. Luckily, it was a stable fracture of 2 vertebrae. I just needed to wear a back brace for 10 weeks in the build-up to those races. So I carried on aqua jogging, and I tried some static bike with my back brace on just to keep the fitness up. And eventually I did get to the start lines of those races. I got to compete for Team GB in the European Middle Distance Championships, and then a trip across to Chicago for the World Age Group Championships. And when we got to Chicago, my wife and I went across, sponsored by a friend. We went across to Chicago. We were there for a week, and we fell in love with Chicago. We absolutely, really fell in love with it. The whole event, taking part in the Age Group Championships obviously helped, but the whole spectacle of something like that was amazing. We fell in love with Chicago, and I said to my wife, this was 2015, I said, I'm going to come back here and run the marathon one day. I didn't know anything about World Marathon Majors. I just thought, what an amazing city to run a marathon. And I said to her, 2015, one day, let's come back and run the marathon. Now, 2 years later, 2019, we're in now, I was probably in the best shape of my life. I was setting PBs at 5K, 10K, half marathon. I set an Ironman PB at 10:26. And towards the end of the year, I decided my goal was then going to be to qualify for the Ironman World Championships. So I decided from the end of 2019, going forward into 2020, to push triathlon to one side and to focus purely on getting my running speed down. As part of my 10:26 Ironman, I did a 4-hour marathon, and I knew I needed to get down to about 3:30 to get my time under, total of 10 hours to be in with a chance of qualifying for the Ironman World Championship. So that was my goal at the back end of 2019. So my sights were set on a marathon in Valencia in 2020. That was my target for a sub 3:15, maybe even a sub 3 marathon. And obviously, we all know what happened then. COVID came along. COVID hit, all the races were cancelled, world went into turmoil, but I managed to keep on training. I carried on through. I ran a 3:15 marathon with some friends, a little lockdown 4-lap marathon I set up myself. It was a fabulous run. I really enjoyed it, just with a group of 5 friends. It was a great event. No medal, no t-shirt, but I got my PB there of 3:15. Now since then I've carried on right the way through. Obviously I've run Manchester Marathon twice with a PB of 3:19, which collared me for Boston Marathon. So I ran Boston in 2023. Amazing, another lifetime goal, Boston Marathon, absolutely fantastic. I loved every step of it. I've run London Marathon 6 times, and I actually ran London Marathon 6 days after Boston, which wasn't my best idea, but I managed to get around. Then I paced a friend of mine to a 4:01 marathon in New York, which again was a good training run. Pacing is a lot harder than you think. I was nipping into the water stops and getting him drinks and going back out onto the course. It was a tough 4:01. He got just under 4 hours, and I just died a little bit at the end, but paced him to 4:01. And then in March of this year, 2024, I paced him to a 3:41 at Tokyo. So another fantastic run. That was my 21st marathon, I think. And then here we are now. I've just run Berlin Marathon in 3:41 as a training run. Hopefully you saw my splits. I did 20k very easy, very sensibly. I pushed on for 12k to about 7:55 miling, which would be a sub 3:30, and then I eased off the last 10k. So I ran a very controlled pace marathon at Berlin. But what's next? What am I doing next? Well, I'm back into the thinking that I need to get some more speed. I raced Berlin Marathon at 78 kg, and I know I could probably do with getting a little bit lighter than that going forward. 8 weeks time I've got Valencia, and that is the next goal. I want to get a good time at Valencia, sub 3:30, sub 3:25. I don't think I'm quite in PB shape, but I'm getting there. So after Valencia, the plan will be to focus purely for the next 6 to 9 months on speed training, on getting as fast as I can from December 2024 to about the summer of 2025. So for the first 6 months of 2025, I'll be doing lots of track sessions, interval sessions, 2 or 3 sessions a week, just trying to focus on short distance speed. So I'll be racing 5Ks, 10Ks, 5-mile races, nothing more than that for the first half of 2025. But as a main goal for 2025, I'm going to make good that promise I set myself 10 years ago, 2015. I'm going to go back to Chicago Marathon and complete the World Marathon Majors, which I didn't know was a thing back when I was in Chicago last time. But I'm going to go back. It'll be my 25th year as a runner. It'll be my 25th marathon. And I can't wait to go back with my wife in October next year and hopefully set a marathon PB, all-time marathon PB in Chicago. So that's my plan for the next year from here. So over the last 25 years, my motivation to run and to improve has never waned. I've never stopped. I've never taken big breaks, only through injury. But right through the last 25 years, I've run the whole time. And I'm not done yet. I still think there's a PB in me yet. So plan for October next year, marathon PB in my 25th year, my 25th marathon. How old will I be? I don't even know. 54, 55. But hopefully the journey sounds good to you. Hopefully you've enjoyed this ramble. Hopefully you'll feel inspired enough to click the subscribe button, give me a like, help the channel grow a bit, really much appreciated. And I will see you next week when training gets back on for Valencia Marathon. Take care, bye.